My name is Samantha, and I'm 33 years old. Life has thrown me quite a few curveballs, but it's also taught me the true meaning of family. I lost my parents when I was just 8. They passed away in a tragic car accident, leaving me and my younger brother Rocky to fend for ourselves. At the time, Rocky was only 5. After our parents' death, we moved in with our paternal grandparents. They did their best to care for us, but it wasn't easy. They were already in their retirement years, and taking on the responsibility of raising 2 young children was a significant burden. 3 years later, my Uncle Leighton and Aunt Ashley took me in as their adopted daughter. It was heartbreaking to be separated from Rocky, but it wasn't as if I would never see him again. Even though I had to leave my grandparents' house, I held on to the hope that I could still visit Rocky. Leighton and Ashley treated me with kindness from the moment I stepped into their home. They welcomed me warmly and made it clear they wanted me to feel like their real daughter. It took time, but gradually we became a real family. One thing I learned from living with Leighton and Ashley is that being a parent is not just about biology. You don't have to give birth to someone to be their parent. It's about the bond that forms through shared experiences, affection, and care. Leighton and Ashley were incredibly patient with me, even when I was going through my rebellious teenage years. They stood by me, and over time, I came to see them as my real parents. I decided to give back to them by working at Leighton's company. I worked hard and eventually became a supervisor. Rocky and I kept in touch as much as possible. When we both got mobile phones, we started calling and messaging each other regularly. As we grew older, though, our lives got busier and we saw each other less often. Even though we weren't as close as we once were, I was proud of Rocky. He was kind-hearted and hardworking, and he had grown up well, despite the challenges he faced without our parents. He eventually graduated from college and started working for a well-known company. It was a proud moment for both our grandparents and me. Earlier this year, when Rocky turned 30, he reached out to me with some big news. He was getting married. He wanted me to meet his fiancée, Cameron. I was thrilled for him and couldn't wait to meet the woman he had chosen to spend his life with. A few days later, Rocky brought Cameron to meet me, Leighton, and Ashley at our home. When I first saw Rocky, he looked genuinely happy. It was strange to see my once little brother all grown up and introducing someone so important to us. "This is my sister, Samantha," Rocky said, smiling proudly as he introduced me to Cameron. "Thank you for coming today." Cameron smiled back at me, and we exchanged a few pleasantries. She seemed nice enough, and I was happy to see that Rocky had found someone who seemed to make him happy. She was composed and confident, and she looked me straight in the eyes with a determined expression. It was clear she cared about making a good impression. We all sat together, had some cake, and chatted casually. Cameron even asked me a few personal questions, whether I was single, if I had any plans for marriage, and what it was like being adopted by Leighton and Ashley. At first, I thought she was just trying to get to know me better, which I appreciated. Before leaving, she even asked for my contact information so we could meet up again, just the two of us. I was pleasantly surprised and thought it might be nice to have a sister-like relationship with her. A few days later, Cameron and I met at a nearby cafe. I was excited, thinking it would be a good opportunity for us to bond. We ordered coffee and settled into a booth, but soon after we began talking, the atmosphere shifted. Cameron's demeanor became cold and serious, and I could sense something was off. "I wanted to talk to you alone today," Cameron began, her voice losing the warmth it had when we first met. I smiled and nodded, assuming she wanted to discuss something related to the wedding plans. But what she said next took me by surprise. "You're an adopted child of that family, right? And you're still single," she said, her eyes boring into mine. I blinked, unsure of where this was going. Yes, that's right," I replied hesitantly. "Rocky is a stranger to you now. After we get married, please don't involve yourself in our lives," she said bluntly. I was stunned. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. "What?" I managed to say, my voice barely a whisper. "You won't be invited to the wedding," she continued, her tone matter-of-fact. "You're a stranger to Rocky, and I don't want you interfering in our married life." I felt a wave of shock and confusion wash over me. Legally, maybe Rocky and I weren't related anymore, but we were still siblings in my heart. I wanted to attend the wedding, to celebrate this important moment in my brother's life. I tried to explain this to Cameron, to reassure her that I had no intention of meddling in their lives, but she wouldn't listen. "Don't misunderstand," she said, her expression cold. "I'm saying you're a stranger. Family, but strangers. I don't want you depending on us in the future. After Leighton and Ashley pass away, you won't have any reason to involve yourself with us." Her words cut deep. I had never felt so unwelcome, so dismissed. She went on, telling me that if I refused to stay away, it would make her marriage to Rocky difficult. It felt like an ultimatum. If I wanted my brother to be happy, I had to walk away from him. That night, I told Leighton and Ashley what had happened. They were as shocked as I was. "Did she really say that?" Leighton asked, his face a mix of disbelief and anger. "She seemed so pleasant when we met her," Ashley added, shaking her head. I nodded, feeling a lump form in my throat. "I don't want to ruin Rocky's wedding," I said quietly. "I don't agree with what she said, but I'll stay away if it means Rocky can be happy." Leighton and Ashley exchanged a glance, and I could see the concern in their eyes. "If you're not going, then we won't go either," Leighton said firmly. "We won't support someone who treats our daughter like this." The day of the wedding arrived. The sky was clear, and it should have been a day of celebration. But instead, I stayed home with Leighton and Ashley. I tried not to think about what I was missing, but it was hard. I wanted to be there for Rocky, to see him happy. My phone started ringing, and I saw Cameron's name on the screen. I ignored it, not wanting to deal with her on a day that was supposed to be joyful. The calls kept coming, one after another, until I finally put my phone on silent. I couldn't understand why she was calling me so much. She had made it clear that I wasn't welcome, so why did she care now? Later that afternoon, the doorbell rang. When I opened the door, I was shocked to see Cameron standing there, her face twisted in anger. "Why didn't you answer your phone?" she demanded, pushing her way inside. "Do you know how many times I called you?" I stared at her, confused. "Isn't it your wedding day? What do you want from me?" "Your absence ruined everything," she yelled, her voice cracking with frustration. I couldn't help but laugh bitterly. "You told me I wasn't invited, that I was a stranger. Why would I come after that?" Before Cameron could respond, Rocky appeared at the door. He looked flustered, his face flushed from rushing over. "Samantha, I'm so sorry," he said, his voice filled with regret. "I didn't know what was going on. Cameron told me you couldn't come because you had other plans. I didn't realize..." He trailed off, his eyes widening as he looked between Cameron and me. It was clear he hadn't known the full story. Leighton and Ashley joined us in the entryway, and Leighton spoke up, his voice calm but firm. "We chose not to attend the wedding because of how Samantha was treated," he said, his gaze fixed on Cameron. "Samantha wanted to be there for Rocky, but you made it clear she wasn't welcome." Cameron's face paled, and she looked down, unable to meet Leighton's eyes. I didn't realize it would cause so much trouble," she muttered. "Trouble?" Ashley said, her voice filled with disbelief. "You dismissed Samantha as if she were nothing. Family isn't about blood. It's about love and support. You don't get to decide who is or isn't family." Rocky looked devastated. He turned to Cameron, his voice shaking. "You lied to me. You made me think Samantha didn't want to come. Why would you do that?" Cameron had no answer. She opened her mouth, but no words came out. Finally, she turned and left, her shoulders slumped in defeat. After she left, Rocky stayed, and we all sat down together. He apologized over and over, tears filling his eyes. "I should have known something was wrong," he said, his voice breaking. "I should have talked to you, Samantha. I'm so sorry." I reached out and took his hand. "It's okay, Rocky. You couldn't have known. I'm just glad you're here now." That day, something shifted between us. The distance that had grown over the years seemed to fade away, and we found our way back to each other. Rocky decided to call off the wedding. He couldn't marry someone who had tried to tear his family apart. In the end, Cameron's actions brought us closer together. It wasn't the reunion I had imagined, but it reminded me of what truly mattered: the people who stand by you no matter what. Family isn't always about blood. It's about love, respect, and the bonds that hold us together, even when life tries to pull us apart. Rocky and I promised to stay in each other's lives, no matter what. We had lost too much time already, and we weren't going to let anything else come between us. As we sat together that evening, laughing and sharing stories, I realized just how much I had missed my little brother. And I knew that no matter what happened, we would always be family. Strangers to some, perhaps, but never to each other.